Right, well, let's go ahead and get started so that we can jump into our webinar today. Welcome to our Fathom report building workshop. I'm really excited to be able to share some of our reporting capabilities with you. Today, we're going to be going and creating a template from scratch, which we don't typically do in a webinar. So I think that that's going to be super helpful for all of you that are here today. I do just want to take a moment to introduce myself. So I am Lena. I'm a customer engagement manager here at Fathom, and my job is to help our SMBs and our businesses through their onboarding process, as well as some trialists through that evaluation process. And I am joined here with Kaylin, our manager of customer support. So she's going to be great to answer any of your questions throughout the webinar, as well as some at the end. And she did put in the chat to make sure that you put any of those questions in the Q&A in case we don't get to them, or they might need a little bit more research, and we can get back to you later on. And if you use the Q&A, we can always send you a follow-up email. So starting with a little background of Fathom, it's an online analysis, reporting, and forecasting tool designed to help you make better business decisions. It was founded in Brisbane, Australia in 2010 and has since opened offices in England, the Philippines, and here in Seattle, where both Kaylin and I are located. So we also have this slide, how does Fathom work? Sorry about that. So Fathom connects to your source accounting software, whether that's Xero or QuickBooks, or you can upload information through Excel. So that you can have any of your reports automatically create for you with that updated information. We can also use QuickBooks Desktop if you are using that accounting system. So let's talk about today's agenda really quick. It's going to look a little bit different than some of the other webinars that you may have seen from us in the past, as we are going to be starting completely from scratch, looking at those reporting capabilities. So we're going to start with walking through the settings that translate directly into our reports. Then we'll move into the report center and walk through the different sections available there. And after that, we'll dive into actually building that custom report template. We'll finish the webinar off by talking about how to schedule and share your reports. So we do want to make sure that we are focusing this on things that you're interested in. So please do feel free to ask any questions that come up. So now we're going to go ahead and jump into the actual Fathom platform. And Kaylin and I are going to turn off our videos so that it's a little bit less distracting for you there. And we can walk through our sections here. So here we are in our My Company screen, and this essentially works as your home screen when you're in Fathom. So as you can see, we have some different companies in here. We've got some Excel companies, a QuickBooks company, a Xero company. And if I scroll down, we can also see that we have some consolidations. So you're able to have all of that within Fathom. And if you ever need to add additional companies or create one of those consolidations, you can do that using this add button, where you can see company, consolidated group, or benchmarking group there. So today we're going to start with our settings in this Velociraptor Children's Dental Company. And this is the one that we're going to focus on throughout the entire webinar here. So I'll go ahead and jump into our settings here. So our settings are comprised of a 6-step workflow. And step 1 is where you're able to see when your data was last updated, add your divisional level data, such as classes or locations in QuickBooks, push an update if you need new information before the automatic update is scheduled to go. You can also add a budget from QBO, Xero, Excel, or our forecasting tool, and also add any non-financial data such as number of employees or website visits. So I know that that was kind of a lot of information there, but let's walk through it a little bit slower. So we have our financial section here. Whether you're using Excel or QuickBooks or Xero, you'll be able to see when it was last updated, as well as have an option to update from any of those source accounting systems. Under that, we have our budget section. So you can have one budget within Fathom, and you can always update that from Excel or add a budget from your forecast. And if you are using QuickBooks, it'll give you that option here too. Our last section here is non-financials. So this is where you're able to add any non-financial data for KPIs that we'll touch on in just a little bit, but you can either add those results directly into Fathom or import them from Excel. It's going to work the exact same way. All right, so moving into step 2, this is where you're able to upload your logo that can then be used in reports. So you can see that we have that uploaded here, and you can always go in and change it, or you can also go up into the organization settings to be able to add a logo at the more organization level, so it shows up on your My Company screen, as well as if you download any of the analysis tools. Moving into step 3, this is going to be your chart of accounts. So this is where you're able to rearrange the way your accounts are ordered, as well as create additional headers. So the changes that you make here will not go back into your source accounting software, but they will appear in your financial statements later on when we're looking at those. So here you can see we have our revenue section, and then we have a couple different headers here for hygiene production and doctor and associate production. But we can also click on multiple of these to create additional headings or reclassify them if something comes over a little wonky, especially in this expenses area. If it's supposed to be a fixed expense or a variable expense, you can always reclassify that too. We can also move things around if you just want to see it in a little bit different order. So there's lots of different options there that will be available to see later on.
If you want to show a reclassification, you can move that hygienist for production to the rest of the ones.
Perfect. So if we want to reclassify this to be a variable expense, all we'll have to do is click on reclassify and then move that to variable. And we can also move it down. Sorry about that. We'll reclassify that to revenue. There's lots of options. And you'll see that this will pop up if it's something that we might not think necessarily makes sense. But in this case, it does. It goes with these other hygienist production options here. So we'll just click yes to reclassify, and it'll move up into this section. Then we can also move it into this header if we wanted to or not. But it'll also give you that notification there. So we'll just save those changes. And then we can go into step 4, which is our KPIs. So this is where you're able to set your KPIs or key performance indicators that you want to track within Fathom. We have over 50 default KPIs that you can choose from, or you can choose to create your own. We have non-financial KPIs, formula KPIs, and account tracking KPIs. I'm not going to go into depth on how to create all of those today, but you do have those options in this create a KPI tool here, where you can see that we've got that non-financial option as well as the formula option. And if we scroll down a little bit, you'll see that we have some of those in here as well. So we've got a formula and a non-financial there too. Moving into step 5, this is where you're able to set targets for the KPIs that we just activated. This is especially helpful when you're looking at different charts and graphs or trying to track your KPIs over time to see how they're comparing against their targets. So you can see that we have the ability to use the budget. If you have one uploaded, you can type in what you want those targets to be. Or you can also use variable targets, which will give you the option to change them month over month. So there's lots of flexibility here depending on how you want those targets to look. So I'm going to go ahead and skip number 6 since it doesn't directly relate to our reports today, and jump into the report section. All right, so here we are in the report center, and we have our navigation bar on the left, as well as this create report button on the top right. And we're going to go through this navigation bar first here. So at the top, we have our drafts. So these are going to be reports that you're still editing and working on, and they aren't quite ready to be shared with others. So maybe it's the same template that you're using each month that you need to do some editing on before actually sending that off to who needs to see it. Next, we have our published bucket. So this is where the reports live that are all polished up and ready to go. You're also able to invite in additional users if you want them to be able to view only those published reports. We have lots of different classifications and options to toggle on or off for additional users. Next here, we have our template section. So we have our predefined templates, which are ones that we have created for you. So you can see we have our monthly performance report, quarterly performance report, annual performance report, etc. here. So these really just work as a groundwork for you to then edit and change to have and save as a custom template. And that way you can use that same template every month, quarter, or year, depending on the frequency of it. So you don't have to go in and create it from scratch or make those same edits every time. Under that, we have our scheduled reports that we'll touch on in a little bit, and I'll show you how to actually create one there. And then last down here, we have our Excel reports. So these are going to be an Excel spreadsheet of different date ranges of data. If you're looking for them, maybe your KPI results or your budget, you can always come in here and download those into Excel if you need that file there. So I'm going to jump into this custom template section. And this way we can create one from scratch. So today we're going to be creating up just a monthly report. And so I'm going to go ahead and click on create template here. Once I do that, I'm able to add a template name, and I'm going to name this one monthly outcomes and projections. So I'm going to select this reporting period to be a month, and we're going to leave it in portrait. But if you want to, you can also put one in landscape, which will allow you to have some more columns in some tables and graphs later on. So I'm going to go ahead and click Create Template. And here we can see the inside of our template here. So we have our header section as well as our navigation bars on the left-hand side. And then below that, we don't have anything since we're starting from scratch here. So I'm going to go ahead and click on Edit Header. So this is where we're able to add a background image or color. So if I wanted to change this color to say be blue or green there, or we could also change it to be one of your company colors if you have that hex code handy. And I'll show you how to change the graphs to those colors later on too. Below that, we have the options to change the text. So we can change the text alignment if we want it to be to the left or to the middle. And we can also change the color if we want it to be light or dark there. Below that, we have our logo section. So this is going to be where you're able to add in your logo that we uploaded in step 2. So now we can see that that's available there. And I do want to point out that we have both this online and the print version. So you can change the orientation for that print version as well as those other options that we saw on the online version. It is important to note that you do have to change the logo on both the online and the print version there so that it actually changes for you. One thing that we like to point out as well is that if you are planning on printing these out, it's nice to use high contrast colors, especially if you're planning on printing it in black and white. That way you can definitely see those differences there instead of having to guess. So I'm going to go ahead and apply those changes so we can see that we've got that logo up there now. So now as I scroll down, we can start actually building out this report. So here it prompts us to start building it out. And to build this section, I'm going to start by just adding a text box. So I'll go ahead and click on Add Text. And I'm going to click on Write Your Own Commentary. So I want to start this, this particular report with just a quick summary of what's going on here. And you can always change this, or in my case, this is something that I would want to edit every single time I'm running this report. So in this case, I'm going to write overall, this month didn't perform as well as we wanted. Our revenue was, and then I'm going to use this @ symbol so that I can pull in what our revenue amount was. So I'll just type in revenue and I want it for this month and I want the actuals. And I'm going to then say, whereas we budgeted it to be, and pull in that budgeted number as well. Oh, it looks like I don't actually have a budget for that. I'm so sorry there. But you're able to pull those in. So if I wanted to do that with expenses, you're able to do that as well, or with any of those different KPIs. You can also pull in months. So instead of saying this month, we could change this to be this time period and pull in this month. And since this month is the last actuals are for November, that's why that's pulling in, but it'll update as you run the template for different time periods too. So under this quick little introduction there, I want to add in our executive summary. So I'm going to find that under this text section and then click on executive summary here. So this is where we're able to see how some of our different metrics are comparing or performing here. So we can see our revenue, profitability, activity, etc. And you can always get rid of these or edit them too. So if I click on these 3 dots, we can edit or delete, or we can just click on this pencil icon to edit it here. So these are what we call observations. And you can see that this one is all about revenue. So if the revenue this month is greater than the revenue last month, then we'll say it was a positive trend upwards, or else we'll say it was a negative trend downwards. And so you're able to add those same elements that we were looking at before in here too. So if we wanted to add one of those variables, we have that option. Or if we wanted to add a time period, we can add those options too. It is also nice to know that you can change what you're comparing. So if we click on this pencil up here, you can change it to be a different KPI, a different account, or whatever you're looking for there. In this executive summary, we do have quite a few listed out already, and you can see that this particular dentist office this month is not doing so hot. People are not looking to get their teeth cleaned around Thanksgiving, it looks like. So below our executive summary, I'm going to add in another section. So down here, we can see add another section, and I'm going to go ahead and click on that. And we're going to title this one KPIs. So this is where we're going to see some of our different KPI results listed out or in kind of a visual sense. So in this section, I'm going to go ahead and click add charts. And here we can choose from a drop down of different sections. You can see that we can go into KPIs, and we'll do that for this particular option here, but we have a lot of different sections in here as well. So to start off, I want to bring in this KPI Explorer. And we can see all of our KPIs that are on track or off track based on the targets that we set. So we can go ahead and click edit in here as well. And if you've looked in our analysis tools, this one will probably seem pretty familiar as it is one of the options in there too. So here we're able to choose how we want to sort it. So right now it's sorted by the groups that we set in the KPI section of the settings, but I actually want to set it by importance so we can see how our most critical KPIs are performing versus maybe the ones that are nice to know, but not super important here. So we can see that our critical KPIs, one is doing great, one is not doing so great. So it's a good quick glance at what's going on there. Right under that is our highlight section. So if you want to highlight only the on-track KPIs or maybe the off-track KPIs, you can do that too to really draw attention there. So I'm going to go ahead and apply those changes. And then right below that, I want to add in a different chart. So I'm going to go back to this chart section and add in this KPI summary table. So this is going to be very similar or the exact same information that we're looking at in this particular element, but here we have a little bit more information and it's a little bit easier to read. So we can see what our result was. We can also see what that target was and how it's trending, as well as the importance level there. So this is a really nice way to see what those actual numbers are and drill down a little bit more there. So that's all I want to bring in for this particular KPI section. We just want an overview of what's going on there for this particular report. There are going to be some deep dives into revenue and expenses later, but for this one, we just want our particular president or higher ups to know kind of what's going on, but they don't need to know all that nitty gritty there. So I'm going to go ahead and click on add another section again. And we will again have that untitled section. And this time we're going to go ahead and name it revenue here. So from here, we can go ahead and add some different charts and graphs. And we're going to start in just this chart section again. So I'm going to go back to our revenue. And what I want to bring in is our revenue this financial year, as well as the rolling 12 months, and then the revenue budget projection. So right now, these are all really big, taking up a lot of space here, but if we wanted to make them a little bit smaller, we can always change that up using these arrows. So I can fit a couple different graphs in one area. And then we'll leave this projection chart available down here. So here we have our revenue this financial year chart. So let's go ahead and click into edit here. So we can always add or remove additional variables to any of these charts and graphs. So if I go ahead and click on that, we could add, say, the operating profit margin as well to see how that's performing, or any other ones that we might want to look at on here. So I'll go ahead and click done. And then instead of this green color, we want to actually have our dark green from our brand color. So I'm going to go ahead and copy that hex code over. So I can copy it and then paste it right in here to change that graph color. So we'll go ahead and leave that one. And then we'll go ahead and bring in the dark purple for that other element too, so we can really see the contrast there and see how those are performing a little easier. If you wanted, you could also change the chart type. So if we want this to be a bar graph, we can change those, or an area graph too. There's lots of flexibility here on the type of graph that we want to look at. I'm going to switch these ones back to line and then show you just one more thing that you can do with all of these different charts and graphs that comes in super handy if you're using our forecasting section. So I'm going to go ahead and click on these three dots and then click on advanced settings. And here we're able to see this projection section. So if I click on this box, you're able to choose if you want to look at the target, the rolling average, or the forecast here. So I'll go ahead and change this to the forecast so that we can see some of that variability, whereas we're using the same target every month. So that would be just a straight line there. I'll apply those changes and we'll see that that will stay there. And we can do it with our operating profit percentage as well. So you do need to go in and add this to each of the different elements, but they're available there too. So since we have this revenue rolling 12-month, I want to go ahead and change the colors on this as well. Since we already have the dark purple copied, we'll go ahead and just paste that one in here too to make it a little bit more cohesive there. You'll see that all of the same options are available. You can change the color, the graph type, add or remove variables there. And you can also change the date range, which is something that I failed to mention before. So if you want to show the current financial year or a custom range, you can go ahead and change that in here too. Add some month into the future, or just look at the ones that we currently have there. All right, the last one that we're looking at here is our total revenue year to date plus rest of the year budget. So the only thing that I want to do on this is go ahead and change that color. And this time I think I'm going to use the light purple just to change it up a little bit. So I'll copy that and go back in here and change that there. One more thing that I do like to point out, since it wasn't on the last one that we were looking at, we do have last year numbers in here too. And you can also bring in the budget just right here, which will come up as a separate line there too. Great. Perfect. So that's all we want to focus on for our revenue. We just want an overview of those few different sections there. So now we're going to go ahead and add another section. So I'll click there. And this one I want to be about expenses, since that's what's most important for our CEO. So now we're going to go back into this charts. And this time we're going to go down to costs and expenses. And what they really want to see is this cumulative expenditure graph. So we'll go ahead and bring that in. And then we also want the expenses, just the top line number there. So we'll go ahead and bring this number up to the top. And we're going to copy this over a couple times. So we're just going to duplicate it once. So here we can go ahead and once again change those colors around if you would like. We've got this sparkline option, so we can change this to be our purple color again. You can also show a comparative if you want it to be compared to the prior month or prior year. You can change that there too. So we'll apply those changes. And then for this one, we don't need to see the same thing twice. So we'll go ahead and edit this. And then we will edit this particular metric. And let's see, what did we want to bring in? We actually want to look at our other expenses here. So we've got our top line, and then we want to look at our other expenses just to have that as its own segment here. So we're going to look at it for this month. And it looks like we're doing pretty good. So we've got 0 other expenses for this particular month. So we'll apply those changes, but we still want to keep it in there for when we have other months where that number might be a little bit higher than we expected. And we really just want to keep an eye on that element there. So maybe in December, it'll be higher and there will be an amount there. So right below that, we have our cumulative expenditure. So here you can see that we've got our total expenses here, total cost of sales and other expenses, which as we saw before, were 0. If we click in, we'll see the exact same options as we saw for the revenue graphs. And again, all I'm going to do here is just change these colors around. Orange is not really what we want to focus on here. We're more of a purple and green kind of company. So we're going to go ahead and change these around. Just give me 1 second. We'll change this one to be that dark green again. Okay, perfect. So now, once we have other elements in there, those will populate too. So I'm going to go ahead and click Apply Changes and add what we call a layout. So that's going to be in a totally new section. But if I click on this layout section, we're able to add a 1-page collection of different charts and graphs. So we could look at this revenue forecast projection or just the revenue forecast, as well as we've got profitability, cash flow, growth, and just our forecasting section. So in this case, we're going to add from forecasting, and we're just wanting to bring in this profitability forecast. So we'll click on that, and you'll see that we have our graph in here, our 3 graphs in here that show those different projections. So profitability is obviously always important. So we like to add where we're at as well as where we think we're going for that element. So once again, I'm just going to go in, change one of these colors, and then we'll move on. I know you all know how to do that by now. There we go. Okay, so the last section that I want to add in here is going to be our some of our financial statements. So I'm going to go under add tables and financials, and we'll see here that we can look at this month versus last month, the last 3 months, etc. here. In this case, I want to look at this month and the year to date. So we'll go ahead and click on that and bring it in here. And we'll click on this edit button once again to see what's going on. So right now we're looking at the profit and loss, but we can also toggle this to be the profit and loss and the balance sheet, just the balance sheet, the cash flow statement, or just a snippet of one of these elements here. Below that, we have all of the columns. So we've got this month, the same month last year, we've got year to date and year to date for last year as well. So you can always add or remove columns here. If you wanted to bring the budget in, we can look at that. Or if we wanted a variance column, so this month versus last month, we could look at that all in the same place here. Once again, you can change these highlight colors. So if I wanted to change this to my green, I could go ahead and do that there. And we'll change it to a little bit lighter. The last thing that I want to point out here is that you are allowed to export this particular part of the report to Excel. So if I click on that checkbox and apply changes, and then scroll down to the bottom, you'll see that we have that export to Excel option down there, so that this table will be able to be exported to Excel. So we didn't touch on them or bring them into this particular report since we were just doing more of a high level overview. But I do just want to click and show you a couple different options within this tables and financial section that might be helpful for you. So under financials, we also have financial trends. So if you need a rolling 12-month or a forward projection, you'd find those under the financial trends section. We also have financials by division. So if you're using classes or locations, you're able to bring that in and see that breakdown in your report. We also have financials by company as well as KPIs. So if you wanted a KPI table where you listed out specific KPIs against their target, you'd be able to bring that in as well there. So I'm just going to add one more section. And this is going to be our KPIs explained here. So now this is found under our charts. And I'm going to use this search bar up here and just type in KPI. And we'll see it under this we also found option. So I'll click on that. And this is going to give me a description and the calculation for how all of my different KPIs are being calculated there. So this is super helpful if you are passing this report off to someone that might not know exactly why you chose to track all of the KPIs that you did choose to track, or if they just maybe need a refresher on how something is calculated there. So for me, this report covers exactly what I need to know. And as a reminder of all of the sections that we just added, I'm going to go ahead and click on this outline feature, which lists out all of the different sections. And we can always jump back to another one too. So that's really helpful if you're in a meeting and you need to revisit something, or if you're making edits there and you realize that something might need to be changed a little bit, and you can just hop right back up without having to scroll all the way through the report. So I'm going to go ahead and go back to reports since my template is all done there, and point out some other things that we can do here. So since we have this template already created, we can now create reports from it. So if I click on create report, we can bring it into draft or published. And since I know it's exactly what I want it to be, I'm going to put it into published. We can change if we want it for the month, the quarter, or the year, as well as which period we want that for. So I'm going to leave it as November 2021. And then we'll go ahead and create that report. So now we're going to go and view it. So our published reports have some little animation features to make things a little bit more interesting, keep you on your toes a little bit. So as we scroll down, you'll see some of that, which is pretty fun to see all those graphs and charts coming in, especially if they're looking good there. So if you have this particular report and you know that you need it in a PDF, we have a couple different places that you can download that. So one of them is right here from within the report. We can go and download it. Or if we're back in the report center and we click download here, you're able to have that same PDF. So if you do have a report that you've maybe made some edits to and you really, really like it and you want to save it as a custom template, you can do that from the report bucket too. So from here, I'll just click on these three dots and I'll go ahead and click save as a template. And we'll just name it monthly report in this case, since it's the same one we already have, and then click create report. So now we'll see that it's available in this template section here too. If you're using multiple companies within Fathom, you can also share these reports out. So if I click on these three dots once again, we can go ahead and click on duplicate. Oh, sorry, that was not the right thing. We'll go ahead and click on copy to another company. So you can choose another company to copy this template over to if you know that maybe one other company would really benefit from using this there. The other option that we have here is to edit template sharing. So here I'm able to choose the groups or companies that this template is shared with. So if it's part of a benchmarking group, you can share it with a benchmarking group, or you can share it with all companies and groups there. You can also choose who can edit this template and who can use this template. So if you want only you to be able to edit it, but everybody can use it, you can change those settings there. So we'll go ahead and cancel that. And one really great time-saving aspect is if you do have a report template that's shared across a bunch of different companies, as all of these and the other templates are, we can go ahead and click on create report here. And it'll give us the option to create the report for only the company we're in or for all of the companies using this template. So that way you don't have to go through each individual company and create that same report. You can just go ahead and have that created for all of them with just one click of a button there. The last thing that I want to point out here is this scheduled reports option. So if we do want to use this monthly outcomes and projections every single month, we can go ahead and click on the more option once again, and then schedule reports. And you'll see here that we can put it in either a published report or a draft report. I'm going to leave it in draft report because I want to be able to edit that text box to be more applicable that we put at the top of the executive summary. And then we can also choose the frequency of when it's created. So here we are creating it one day after the end of the month, but I actually want it to be 5 days after the end of the month to give me a little bit of leeway on getting those actuals brought into the system. Right under that, we have the notification option, so you can notify via email when the report is created. We don't send out the actual report in the email just for security reasons, but you can get a notification when it is created and either in that draft or that published bucket. So I know that we just went over a lot of information there. So I am happy to answer any questions that Kaylin might not have gotten to, or go over anything again that might need a little bit of help. But I hope that this was helpful in showing you how quickly you can create a template that can then be used over and over and over again.
Yeah, Lena, we have a few questions. Can you go over the option to hide no rows?
Oh, absolutely. That's a great question. So I'm going to go back into this monthly outcomes and projections. We'll get this warning that we're making some changes here, but we want to edit the template anyway. So I'm going to use the outline feature, and it looks like I forgot to edit this title section anyway, so we'll put it as financials. There we go. So now if I click on edit here, we'll see that we have the option here to hide accounts with nil balances. Mine is already checked, but if you uncheck it, you'll have some accounts here, so such as hygienist for production, that is all zeroed out. So we can hide that so we don't have to see it in there.
Can you also show a balance sheet by itself and the different format options?
Definitely. So I'll go back into tables and financials, and we can just bring in this balance sheet here. We've got this month and last month, but that's okay. And then if we go into rows, you can see that we've got our standard balance sheet. We've got a couple standard there, and then we've got separations of operations and finance as well. And then just one more thing to point out is that we do have a summary level as well as a detailed level, depending on how much detail you want to show based on those account names.
And if that level of customization isn't enough for someone, how would they go about building a custom balance sheet with a KPI table?
They would do it with a KPI table.
Show that.
Yeah, so we would go ahead and go into our tables and financials, and then we'll go back into KPIs here. So I vaguely touched on this, but we'll go ahead and bring in one of these KPI tables into the report. And then we can go ahead and edit that. And here you're able to add or remove any of the columns that you want. Sorry, I was clicking on the wrong thing. We'll look at rows here. Any of the rows that you want. So you can bring in those balance sheet accounts here so that they're listed out there. And then we do have the hide rows with all zeros once again available here. So there's a lot of customization to be able to get rid of these elements. You can also add the totals here or add additional rows of different KPIs or balance sheet accounts if that's what we're looking at.
And then can you talk about what if somebody wants to comment on a report?
Oh, great question. So it should be automatically turned on for you, but it's also in this settings section. If you didn't see what I was doing there, I clicked on this cog in the lower left-hand corner. And then under conversations, it says allow comments to be added for reports created using this template. So we'll leave that checked. We'll go ahead and apply those changes. Go back to the reports. And then in our published report, we'll go into view. And as we scroll down, we'll see that we have these little comment box or comment little voice boxes on the right-hand side. So we can just go ahead in there and write a comment, and then that'll be available for other viewers to see in there too.
And then this question just came in. Is it possible to download financial statements that include the balance sheet, the profit and loss, and cash analysis?
To download them into Excel or
it is unclear.
Okay, so there's a couple different options here. I'll go ahead and click into Excel really quick, or the Excel reports really quick. So here we can download your financial results. So that will show you all of your financial results there. But if we go back into our template here and go into edit once again. And we'll go back into that financial section. You do have the option to export to Excel just this table at the bottom if you toggle that on, and you can bring in any of those statements in here. So if you wanted it to be the cash flow statement, you could bring that into the report as well. But you can also just create a report that only has those 3 statements, and then you can download it to PDF as well.
Can you show where the download icon is?
Yes, it's just down at the bottom of the financial statement. So it's export to Excel
No,
here.
sorry, the PDF.
Oh, over here on the download section on the left-hand side.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, then let me see. Oh, for the executive summary, can you change the thumbs up and down?
Oh my gosh, yes, you definitely can. That is a great question. The thumbs up and down are not my favorite either. They definitely make a point there. But if we click into edit, we can toggle these between a check mark or the thumbs down has an X or an exclamation point there as an option too. So you would have to go into each one of those to make that change though, but you do just need to make it once. So as long as you save that template, you should be good to go in the future.
And then someone's financial statement goes onto another page by 2 to 3 lines. Is there a way to adjust this?
You can move around elements or make them smaller, but not really. Those would be the only options there. If you could move it up at all, if there was something above it or something like that, but there's no way to like make the text smaller or anything like that.
And so we do have a question about emailing the reports. They know that you said it wasn't currently an option, but they're saying that they don't want the accountants to have to email out the financials. You can have it set so that when a scheduled report is created, it informs people though.
Yeah, absolutely. So if you want to give other users access, you can definitely have that email go out that says it's been created. And that way they can just log in and take a look at that report. And as I mentioned, you can really tailor that access. We'll just take a quick look in here. So I'm just going into user management, and then we'll go ahead and just click on invite a person. So we have 3 main options here. We've got viewer, editor, and admin. The viewer is going to be only able to view reports or different sections. Editor can obviously edit some different elements in there, but you can tailor which accounts or which areas you want them to see, and an admin has access to everything. We do have advanced user permissions though as well. So if I click in here, you'll see that you can toggle on or off different sections. So if you only want them to be able to see those published reports, we can go in and toggle off all of these different KPI options, as well as these benchmark options, and just leave this view published reports on. And that way, that's all they can see when they log into Fathom.
Right, and so then when a scheduled report is created, it'll let them know to log in.
Exactly, yep.
Okay, that's all we have.
Okay, perfect. Well, if any other questions come up, please let us know. We also have a really great help center, which is available down here. We've got articles and videos in there, and then our support team, which is super, super helpful. Cannot recommend them enough if anything else comes up. So have a great rest of your day, everybody.